You're listening to the Sports Cycle on 1051 Live. I'm your host, Timothy McKain, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing Lavonte, world class Earley. How you doing today, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great, man. I'm doing wonderful. I really appreciate this opportunity, man. You allowing me to be able to speak and ask me some questions. I really am grateful. I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when did your love for the fight game begin?
My love for the fight game started before I ever even started boxing. One of the things I never thought I was gonna be a professional boxer. A lot of kids grow up, at a young age. They know, okay, I'm gonna play football, I'm gonna play basketball. These are the things that my mind is set on at a young age. And you see a lot of athletes come up with that same kind of concept. But I actually didn't have that same epiphany at a young age. My grandfather used to record all of the old fights, all of the old boxing matches, and he was a huge fan of boxing and wrestling. So that was one of the things where I would watch boxing with him, and that's something that we kind of bonded over. And then my father used to box, so my love for the sport really developed before I ever even picked up a glove. But I started boxing at 16. And so, boxing was a way for me to get out of the streets and get away from the people that I was around, because I ended up in some bad situations. So this was boxing was really one of the things that saved my life, man. And that's when I fell in love with it, when it brought me to something that was better and gave me a focus and gave me a goal. So that's when I would say about 17, 18, man. That's when I really fell in love with it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what were some of the tapes that your grandfather recorded that you grew up watching? Some of the old school fighters, and also who were some of the fighters that you looked up to and you wanted to mirror their style as a fighter?
Man, of course, everybody says like Floyd Mayweather. You know what I mean? Like, but I
Yeah.
was a serious study of Floyd Mayweather. Everybody sees kind of what he does, like the glitz and glamour and stuff like that. But I was a serious study of like what actually made this man great and what made him so good behind the words and how he talked. His attitude in the media, because being out in Vegas and being at his gym, it was a completely different experience, once I got older. And now that I look back on when I was younger and how I thought about Floyd and things like that, it's like everything started to make sense. Like that man is just so dedicated and so, just driven towards his goal that literally nothing can stop him. You know what I mean? So, I mean, but some of the old school fighters that I would look up to, man, where my papa was probably like Arturo Gaddy.
Ooh.
He had a lot of like Marvin Hagler fights. He had a lot of like Sugar Ray Leonard, stuff like that, the classic stuff. And then everybody tried to have everybody had the 15-second Mike Tyson fights. That didn't take up no tape.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's crazy.
Do you remember watching the Arturo Gaddy versus Floyd Mayweather fight?
Yeah,
What do
of
you think of
course.
that one?
That was one of the craziest fights, man. And it's crazy because it broke my heart, because I loved Floyd at the time and I loved Arturo at the time. And man, that right hand to the body, right hand to the head, that was like the punch for everybody. Like, dude, kill this guy. And so, and then on top of that, right after that, Arturo ended up losing his life. And it's like, it's
Yeah.
crazy, man. Like this whole sport is just, it's wild. But I watched that fight I probably watched that fight maybe 15 times. Like,
Same.
I love that fight. That was a great fight, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you started boxing at 16 years old, won
Hmm.
5 Golden Gloves. How did you learn from your experiences as an amateur, winning 5 Golden Gloves and also winning some championships in Georgia? And how did you turn that um, into your professional career? How did you mature and how do you use that for yourself as a professional?
Well, the amateur, as far as the amateurs, man, the amateurs is what really brings you through, what puts you in front of those guys that you're eventually going to see in the pros. And that's what really cultivated a lot of who I am as a fighter, and stylistically who I wanted to be and what I was going towards. You know what I mean? And it really showed me what I needed to focus on, because the amateurs is a place where you're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed lose a fight here, go here, might get beat up here. You know what I mean? Like it's that time for you to be able to test, because once it becomes serious and that headgear comes off and those gloves go down 2 ounces, right? That's when things get serious and you don't have the room to make those same mistakes. So my amateur career really, it helped me to just move forward in the sport of this, in the sense of experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the pro, it was one of those things where being in North Carolina and being a fighter from Charlotte, North Carolina, turning pro is one of those things where you got to kind of learn on the job, because the amateur scene here is not that big. So when we were doing amateurs, we had to travel. We had to go to Georgia, to Tennessee, places like that, to be able to get those different looks and see that experience and what we were going to be able to run into later down the line. So, I think everybody, like Coach Al Simpson at Charlotte Boxing Academy, for, helping us, helping me to be able to travel, man. That was just one of the things that a lot of fighters don't get to do here. And I was just blessed to be able to have that opportunity. So it definitely shaped me, man. It definitely shaped me as a man.
Absolutely. My thing with amateur is, like you said, like you can take those losses, but in boxing, I think one of the issues with boxing now is, you can't, if you lose that, people, they don't respect you the same way. But
Right.
as an amateur, you can lose some. But if you look at the greats in boxing, everybody had L's. Everybody had L's. So what is your thoughts
Yeah, for sure.
on boxing now currently, and how they judge the undefeated fighter, or the fighter that has maybe 2 or 3 losses on their resume?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, man, it's very hard and it's easy to be undefeated, depending on your team and the people that you got around you and your support system. But I think it's one of those things where, like, when people compare the Jordan era to the LeBron era, like you can't compare those things, because they're 2 completely different games. They're 2 completely different eras. And the game was just played differently then. And I feel like boxing is the same exact way. The game is just played differently now. Boxers are going in there and they're not taking as much punishment. People aren't trying to get hit as much. People are protecting their records because of the precedent of what Floyd set. And he was viewed at his pinnacle. He was viewed at the ultimate greatness, meaning in the sense of, how do I get the furthest I can in boxing? How do I achieve the highest level in boxing? And he literally did that in multiple weight classes. So it's like, if I want to be the best fighter in the world, who do I look at, and whose career do I model in that sense? You know what I mean? So when you look towards things like that, he really changed boxing in that way. And some people say that it's a good thing. Some people say that it's a bad thing. And it's really just a matter of opinion. But we have this era now where a lot of the bigger fights are harder to make. You know what I mean? It's a lot of different sanctioning bodies that are pulling different things, because they see how much money is in boxing now. If you look back 30, 40 years ago, it was nowhere near as much money in boxing as it is now. And so boxing as a sport in itself has changed completely.
Yes.
So it's hard to even compare the 2 eras. And you can't say that, that people that fought back then will be able to survive now. You can't say that people that fight now will be able to survive back then. It's just 2 completely different things, man. It's hard to compare that.
I respect that. I know a few people who would disagree with you when it comes. I know a lot of people, they look at the older generation and they say that they would buy the new generation just because, like the Aaron Pryor versus the Alexis Arguello fight. They just went ham the whole round. Like the first round, they were just swinging. But like in today's era, you see guys and they're fighting. It's almost like they wait until like the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round to get started. Do you think personally, as for somebody that's not a boxing fan, is that good for the sport? Should they get back to that aggressive style of boxing?
For the sport. And that's the tough thing. That's the tough thing, man, because it's like you look at, and I keep making other sports comparisons, because it's one of those things that's easy to grasp for like the regular person that's not necessarily doesn't know a lot about boxing. But it's like, the same thing with the concussion rules with football. It's like, all right, do you bring concussions back so football can be better? Because it's the same exact thing. Do we go in here and beat the heck out of each other just because that's what everybody want to see? Or do we go and we show our craft and we show our art and we show what we do to perfect the sport and what we're doing to move this forward and work towards it? Just think about how many crossovers you've seen in basketball 60 years ago, 50 years ago.
Not many.
It wasn't barely none, no
Yeah.
crossovers in basketball. Now, if you can't dribble, you can't play. Like, you got to be a center and dribble. You know what I'm saying?
Or
So
Klay Thompson.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in boxing, man. It's like, for the sport, for the casual fan, yeah, they want to see people get in there and beat each other up and beat the heck out of each other. But as us, as fighters, as human beings, dude, we got to live too. We got to live after this. Boxing is a very, very short period in our life, right? So, yeah, we might be beating the heck out of each other now, but then what about when our grandkids get here? Can we talk to them? Can we take them places? Are we able to eat like everybody else? Are we able to move around like everybody else? Those are the things that you got to consider, man, your longevity in life.
I agree. You think
I don't fault the boxers, man, for doing what they need to do to survive after this.
And do you believe boxers are like that because, like you said, they see what happens to some of those great boxers that took that punishment, boxers like Muhammad Ali and etc.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, you look at this stuff, man, and that's one of those things that breaks my heart, man. When you see the guys like Muhammad Ali, who is a legend, not only in the sport but the world. You feel what I'm saying? It's not even about like what he did in boxing; it was about his entire life. And then you look at how he had to live the rest of his life. Like, no matter what nobody says about his illness, everybody knows that if he wouldn't have been a boxer, things would have probably been different for him.
Yeah.
Nobody can deny that. And so that's one of the things that you got to throw into the mix and into the conversation, man, is preservation, like self-preservation to an extent as an athlete, because we're literally using our bodies as tools and we only get one.
That's a fact. I agree with that. I like your perspective on that. It opens people's eyes because I think the people need to hear that. As a professional, what's the best day and the worst day of your professional career, and how did you mentally handle that?
Oh man, the worst day of my professional career. I would say the best day of my professional career so far has been man, that's a good one. I don't know, man. I had so many good days, but if I had to narrow it down, or one that comes to my mind instantly, would probably be when I won the NBA belt. It's a national belt. When I won that title, man, it was just kind of a different feeling. I had a lot of things. Going against me, man, and I had a lot of people doubting, what I would be able to do and how I would be able to move and stuff like that. And I just did everything I was supposed to in training camp. I stuck to everything. And every boxer can sit and act like they're disciplined through every training camp, but they do everything they're supposed to do all the time. But that's just not true, to be realistic. You know what I mean? No matter what sport you're in, you're gonna have your days where you do this, where you do that. But that training camp and that everything about just how that whole fight went, man, was just wonderful, man. It just paramounted perfect to winning that belt, and that really opened some doors. That's when I turned 10-0. I started getting a lot of phone calls, and it just opened a lot of doors, man. And that was one of the best days of my career. And worst day of my career, I don't know, man.
Was it the injury that you had in a fight?
Oh, well, yeah. So I had are we back? Here we go. Yeah, I forgot about that, man. You see how deep I buried that one, man. I forget about that one. Yeah, that was probably the worst day of my career, man. I injured my foot. I thought my career was over. My arch collapsed in my foot, and that was something that was just devastating. It was definitely devastating, man. And it was one of those things where, as an athlete, when you can't use the tools that you have, you go into like this mental depression, because a lot of what you stand for and what you do every day relies on you being able to use your body in that way. And so when I couldn't, I just felt incompetent. You know what I mean? I just felt like, I wasn't furthering myself as a person. And that's something that can be deep, like how you feel about yourself in those moments and things like that. But I mean, God helped me through that, man. My mom helped me through that. Like that was one of those things where, I eventually got a grip on myself and I worked through that. And that made me so much stronger as a fighter to show me that I could go through something like that and come out on the other side good. You know what I mean? Like, even if something like that were to happen to me now, I know and I'm prepared mentally for it to be able to work through that. Of course, everybody's going to be sad, but at the end of the day, I know that I can get through it. It's a difference when you have that assurance, like you've been through it before and you have that assurance that you're going to be able to come out on the other side good. So, but that was definitely one of the worst days of my career, man. Whew. That was a bad day, but
Yes, sir.
it
Yes,
made
sir.
me stronger, man.
That's good. That's good. So you talked about how your mother, your faith, helped you in your recovery from your foot injury. How has your mother helped you in your career so far? And she actually started, for people who don't know, she started Vegas Grand Promotions in 2018. What's the process been like? The journey been like for you and your whole family with your mother starting this promotion?
Oh man, it's been crazy, man. It's been such a blessing, man. It's been such a blessing. Like my mother is like, she's definitely been one of my rocks through this whole thing. Like one of the people that's been holding me down. And yeah, her starting a promotion has just been crazy. We get so much backlash and so many things going on. It's funny because like I'm the voice of reason. My mother is on go. Like she is on go. She ready to do whatever. She's like, we're gonna build this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. I'm like the voice of reason that says like, all right, well, we gotta relax, we gotta think about this before we do it. We gotta move forward in a calculated way. So it's our relationship is getting better every day, man. Like we grow closer every day, and I appreciate her stepping into this role because it's one of those things where this game is so dirty and so nasty, man. And it's like people that are closer to you can stab you in your back. And, it's so many ways to get finessed in this game. It's a million more ways to get finessed than it is to make it. And so navigating your way through this thing, man, it really takes the right people behind you and the right people around you, not yes men. It takes people that are going to tell you how it really is, and then know your worth and know that you are what you say you are, and you are the product that can be presented in a way that people want to buy it, and that's what my mother is good at. She's good at making something that already is good look great.
Wow.
And so this whole opportunity has just been awesome, man, being able to work close with my mother. She has stage 4 cancer, so us spending this time together and us being able to bond over this is one of those things that's really close to my heart.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate her being interested in this because she didn't want me to box at all. She like, everybody hit my baby in the face. But for her to really step into this and step up, yeah. She can't even watch the fights, man. She be having her back turned. She be like, other places when I fight, she like, I can't watch nobody hit him.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's crazy, man, that you have that balance. But it's been an excellent opportunity, man, for us to work together and do this.
That's amazing. So how has your mother inspired you as a man, as a fighter, and as an entrepreneur?
Oh man, I mean, my mother is like the one of the most hardworking people that I know. Like, just she literally has shown me through her actions what the word perseverance means. Like, she has just always persevered through everything my whole life. And now, as an adult, to have the perspective um, of an adult and look back on my childhood and before, and then look at her now and be able to experience now, but from a point of understanding is just a completely different thing. So she inspires me, and we hold each other up in that way, in the sense of I know that I can't let her down. I got to continue to keep working it and keep doing my thing, to not let her down or let anybody around me down. Because I mean, I have an excellent support system. My father, my coaches, like all of those people are there. So she's inspired me, in that way. And she is one hell of an entrepreneur, man. Like, she is on it. She's like, let's get this hustle going. Let's get this hustle going. She gave me that whole mindset. So I'm always thinking how, I can make something, out of nothing, and how I can use my talents and my skills and the things that I'm good at, and the things that I have an eye for to monetize that, to be able to, set us up for later things. You got to have that multiple streams of revenue. That's important.
Exactly, exactly. So I want to transition back to boxing real quick. Um, from your perspective, who were some of the greatest matchups that you've had in your amateur career and in your professional career so far?
One of the greatest matchups in my amateur career, I fought a guy, Money Powell. He's a pro. He's a pretty well known pro. Man, that was an awesome fight because I was a couple inches shorter then, and that was a great fight, man. And Money Powell, I ended up losing that fight by 2 points, man. I was so upset, but I was happy about my performance because I had worked so hard to get there and did so much. But it was like one of those things where you lose a close fight like that. Yeah, that was one of the best of my amateur careers. Then I had another fight that was a really great matchup. I fought a guy, my last fight, Marquise Bates, who was a guy from Massachusetts. And he definitely came to fight, man. He came to fight. My last fight was definitely a great fight to watch. I got to show a lot of my skills and a lot of my poise and control and stuff like that. That was great. But I would say one of my greatest matchups, I fought a guy named Daniel Powell. He was 12-2 at the time, and he had 11 knockouts.
Ooh.
And he was 12-2 with 11 knockouts, and I was 5-0 at this time. And so, being 5-0 and being that new when you fight somebody like that, no matter how much video you watch, you're going to have some nerves. No matter how prepared you feel like you are, you're going to have some nerves about it. But, I was confident. I went in there. I ended up getting him out of there in the second round. And that was one of the things, man, that was like a crazy accomplishment for me. I felt like that was a great matchup because he came with the heat, and he tried to make me number 12. He tried to make me number 12 on that list. So that was definitely a great matchup for me, man. And I had a lot of fun doing that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, Lavonte, what are your personal keys to success?
Personal keys to success. I would say my first one is would be stoicism. So stoicism is a concept of basically being unwavering. Like, things don't affect you too much one way or another, whether they're really, really good or whether they're really, really bad. Just being even keel across the board, having that control, having that poise. It allows you to move through life in a way that, you can accept things for what they are, and you can move on from them, and you can move forward from it. And it makes it a whole lot harder for you to take things personally, because a lot of times we get caught up in emotional situations where we think one way or another because we take things personally. Like, oh, this person did that because of it, but because of me, or they was thinking about me when they did this, or, just taking stuff personally can really hold you back. So stoicism is really one of those things that, I follow, man, and I try to keep that control and keep myself moving forward in that direction. The second thing is faith. Having that God, man, having that savior, somebody that you could look up to, and somebody that that has your back at all times, and somebody that is watching over you. And just being dedicated to whatever you are in, and being passionate about what you do, and doing something over and over again, or doing something that makes you a lot of money, or doing things that, that put you in a better position. It's cool for some people, but one of my biggest keys to success is passion, like just being engulfed in what you do. You know what I mean? Like just being completely a part of what you do, and living and breathing that. And that's one of those things that helps you to push you through in those hard times. Because there's things that I don't like about boxing, but I love them at the same time because I'm passionate about everything about boxing. Wow. And I'm completely engulfed in this thing, and I'm dedicated all the way to it. The dedication is easy if you're passionate about what you do.
Agreed. But I want to go back to stoicism because I found that to be interesting. You said not really wavering, not when you're high and when you're low. How did you get to that point where you were stoic? Because like not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has that trait.
To be honest, therapy, man. That was one of those things. So it's funny. When I was about 19, but it's crazy because nobody does this. It's this whole stigma behind therapy to where a
Black
young
man.
black male going to get therapy, that's like frowned upon. Like, oh, dude, you weak, you this and that. So when I was about 19, I started training a guy. He ended up being a therapist. He was a black man too. And one day we were just having a conversation, and he was like, "Hey man, why don't you come by the office one day, man? We just sit down and talk." And that's just kind of how it started. But I was approaching it in that same way, like, man, I don't want to go to no therapy, this and that. Like, I'm not sick. I'm not, nothing's mentally wrong with me. Like, I'm good. And he was telling me, and he broke it down to me in the sense of, therapy is not necessarily about fixing things. Like, it's not about, oh, you need to fix this, so you need to go to therapy. It's about the constant striving to be a better person every single day.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just a tool to help you be a better person. It's just a tool to help you understand things a little bit more when you're confused. It's a different perspective. When you talk to your homeboys, or when you talk, all of that is therapy.
Yes.
It's just when you get it from a professional, that's when it has a name on it or a stigma on it. So I paid for it and sought out therapy on my own. It wasn't like something where I was just like, oh, I need to go to therapy for this. I sought it out because I felt like it would make me a better person. And it did.
I love it,
So
man.
yeah, that's definitely where I got that from, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you, as an amateur, you had to travel um, to different states to fight because North Carolina, they don't get the same recognition. They don't have the same level of support in North Carolina. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? And also, why don't people from other states respect North Carolina boxing?
I would say, to the respect question, I think a big part of it is just the history. A lot of fighters that come out of North Carolina have just have a history of not being that good or making it to a certain level and then falling off and things like that. It's just things that's been happening over the years, man, that just gave us this reputation. Um, and it's one of those things where I feel like in the sense that they aren't they aren't completely wrong, but at the same time, they're wrong about certain people. They're wrong about certain things. So I don't know. We've just always had that. We not always, but for a while we've had that. We've had that reputation of like, oh, not a lot of good fighters come out of the South. It's just they're concentrating in those places like California and New York and things like that. And I think the talent pool is definitely here. Like, we have people that are talented, but I feel like a part of that is coaching. We don't have an abundance of great coaches that are in North Carolina. And don't get me wrong, we have great coaches that are North Carolina. We have great coaches that are in North Carolina, but they're few and far between. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, you know those coaches that are great coaches in North Carolina. Like, those are the guys. Like, they're the ones that are respected. But without that, it's like you go to somewhere like California, and it's like every gym you go to has a great coach in his own respect and in his own way. So it's just that's the difference, man. And then it's that iron sharpens iron thing. When you got somebody that's a great boxer around your way, you need to be getting to work and sparring with those guys. That's how we get better as a state. And we just also had a history within ourselves of kind of pulling each other down, or like,
Wow.
shooing each other off, because a lot of the promoters come here to make money. So they'll pit us against each other, or they make sure these two camps are fighting against each other. So then you create turmoil and then leave. You know what I mean? Because you're
Right.
not from here. So it's one of those things where we as a state have to stick together, and North Carolina and South Carolina, we've never really had an identity as a
Mhm.
boxing community. And that is the thing that is really, really hard to overcome without pushing against it. We've never really had that identity. And that's what I want to give to the state. And that's what I want to be able to bring to my city, man, is that boxing identity, like what we stand for and who we are, because we have some excellent boxers here. We have great coaches here, but we have to pool our resources and pull ourselves together.
Absolutely.
When you hear about a Philly fighter, what's the first thing they say about him? Oh, he from Philly.
He
That's an
tough.
identity. That's an
Yeah.
identity. They identify that state with a certain thing, it's a certain stigma around, oh, you're gonna have to fight. Oh, you're gonna have to fight, man. My boy from Philly. They have an identity, and we don't really have that. It's like, oh, they got some good boxers there, but then they got bums that come from there, but then they got this and that. Like, we're just all over the place when it comes to that. So I want to give our state and I want to give our city that identity, man, that we need to move forward and actually make some real progress in this thing, in this sport.
Absolutely. And I definitely want to shout out to you for doing that, because I've seen some of your interviews. You definitely show love to North Carolina and definitely to Charlotte. You got love for Charlotte. So just explain your love for Charlotte real quick.
Man, my love for the city, man, it made me who I am. It made me who I am, from the great parts to, from the inner city to Valentine, everything, man. It made me who I am. It gave me a lot of different perspective. But, being young and chocolate in the South can be hard sometimes, man, but I'm telling you, all those things, it shaped me for even what's going on today and being able to navigate. And like I was saying earlier, not having to take a lot of things personal, because I come from that. Like everybody now is in that era of like, oh, I didn't know this is going on, or this is how people really live. But I'm like, nah, it's been like that for years. Like, you know what I mean? So Charlotte really gave me all of that. It gave me the good parts. It gave me the bad parts. It gave me, my first girlfriend. It gave me my girlfriend now. It gave me everything, So the city has just been like that. It's just been that place, man, where my life has just grown and it's blossomed. And then I'm ready for the rest of the world to see, what Charlotte has made me into, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Love that. Love that. So what are your top 10 best boxers of all time?
Top 10 best boxer of all time. I would
Is
say
Floyd the GOAT?
say again.
Is Floyd the GOAT?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I don't like to make arguments like that, man. I don't like to say nobody is the GOAT. Everybody got their own opinion on that. I think honestly, people just say that just to get into an argument about it. They like, he did this, he did this, he did this. Like, that's why people say that. They just want to fight about something, man. They want something to fight about. But yeah, you got Floyd Mayweather, definitely, man. He's been an inspiration throughout my career. I use that pull counter right hand on a lot of people, man. Shout out to Floyd for that. Do they have to be active or inactive?
It can be today's game and then any time period.
Oh, for sure. Julius Jackson. I don't know if you remember Julius Jackson.
Okay, that's
He was
interesting.
knocking them boys out, boy. He
All
was
right.
sleeping them.
Put him to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet Pea Whitaker.
That's a good one too. Floyd Mayweather and Sweet Pea, they fought against each other. Wait, no, was it Sweet Pea? Yeah, I think it was Sweet Pea. Floyd don't like to talk about that too much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Remember that? Oh, for real? Oh, they sparred.
They sparred, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, let me go find some tape on that right now.
No, they didn't fight. They sparred. They sparred.
I would love to see that, man. But yeah, Canelo's great right now. Yeah, Canelo's great. I think he's an all-time great right now. Vasily Lomachenko, that's my guy, man.
Interesting.
That's my guy. I love it. I love his footwork. I got a lot of stuff from him too. I study him a lot as well. Wow. There's let me see, where am I at? I got Floyd, I got Vasily, I got Canelo, I got Sweet Pea.
Julius Jackson.
Yeah, Julius Jackson. Mike Tyson, what he did for the sport. What he did for the sport as a whole, man. I appreciate what Mike has done for the sport and, the precedent that he set. all the fire rap bars that he done been in. Like, he just provided so much for the world.
He was knocking mother suckers out, man. I mean,
I'm telling you, man.
in his first year, he fought 15 times. He fought every 2 weeks.
I'm telling you, dude was going off. He was going off, man. Mike, what he did for the sport is just great. And I'm glad he's still doing well. You got Triple G. Triple G, man. I love watching just Triple G train. That guy's a machine. He's an animal, you know. Now I'll go to active fighters right now. All the young gunners we got coming up right now, like Lavonte Davis. Okay. You got Devin Haney coming up. You got Ryan Garcia coming up. Like, all of these guys are great names, man. They're great fighters. And you can't forget your boy, man. Your boy who beat Vasily, man. That was one of the saddest days of my life. But I respect that dude, Teofimo Lopez, man. He like top dog right now. He top dog right now. He definitely moving. So all of those guys, man, all of those guys that's working, and I really hope to see them one day, because, you know, a lot of them are close to my weight class and in my weight class. And as people get older, they go up in weight and stuff like that. So I definitely hope to be in that circle. Yes, I will be in that circle one day, man. Absolutely. That's what I'm moving towards now.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny, though, that, you know who you didn't mention? Muhammad Ali. And see, that is interesting to me, because, you know, the casual fan or a lot of boxing people that say Muhammad Ali, he's the GOAT, he's this. But in like boxing circles, they don't necessarily always call Muhammad Ali the GOAT. Why do you think that is?
Because if you look at it from a sports perspective, like if you looked at it from a purely numbers perspective, I mean, Muhammad Ali is one of the greatest men to ever live. Like, that's just period. Like, he's just one of the greatest men to ever live, for real. And that has been in the public eye, you know. And a lot of people don't mention that, because there were heavyweights that some people felt like were just better. Mm. You know what I mean? Like, in that era, it was heavyweights that were just better. Like, he had, and professionally, he had his prime years taken away from him.
Exactly.
You know, by being in jail. So that was a hard thing that, you know, a lot of fans got to contend with. And it's like nothing against him. Like, it's not even no disrespect. It's just like, if you look at the numbers, you look at at his time, you look at the things that he did in the sport. You know what I mean? It's no disrespect to him. Like, Muhammad Ali is a one-of-a-kind person. Like, it's nothing you could take from that man. He's done so much.
I feel you. I feel you. See, for me, it's Muhammad over Mike Tyson. Because my thing with Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson was knocking dudes out. That's fact.
Right.
Period. However, once he got to competition that wasn't even really quite to his level, like Evander Holyfield is great, Hall of Fame worthy, right?
Right.
But he was a cruiserweight. He prime. Right. He should not be able to beat Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson. So whenever Mike Tyson had some adversity, it seemed like he was either knocking guys out, but if he had adversity, he was getting knocked out. So, and I also think personally that Mike Tyson didn't fight the best competition. Muhammad Ali fought in boxing's greatest time period and fought some of the greatest.
Man, can I switch mine out, man? Switch mine out. Because I definitely take Muhammad over Mike. I think he was just on the top of my mind because I was watching his podcast recently. But you're right, man. You're right. I ain't afraid to admit when I'm wrong. You're right, man. No, you're definitely right.
I mean, my thing is with Muhammad had that different personality. He had that different mentality, bro. I mean, he would go into a fight with George Foreman. He said, I don't care what you go. I don't care what you do to me. You ain't beating me. George Foreman was knocking everybody out. And he could not put Muhammad Ali to sleep. Muhammad Ali was so deadly, man. There was one time Muhammad Ali, now this is probably one of the issues that Muhammad Ali faced because of this, but there was literally a story where Muhammad Ali in 1980 literally let a heavyweight punch him all throughout his body, and he didn't defend himself just so he could prepare himself for a fight. He did not defend himself in a sparring session just to prepare himself for a fight. You know what I mean? So I just think that's one of
Yeah,
the things
Muhammad
that
Ali got
makes.
it.
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
got
sir.
it, man.
So when is your next upcoming fight? And where can people find you on social media? And I also see you got your gear. Tell the people
Yeah,
about your
man.
merchandise.
Yeah, so this is Lico Luxury. It's one of the series in my attire clothing brand. So I have a clothing line called Attire, and the Lico Luxury series is just that cross between streetwear and casual wear, things like that. And so yeah, so this is one of my pieces. It comes in a suit set, so like a sweatshirt and sweatpants and things like that. But yeah, so on social media, Vaughn_WCG. That's where you can find me at on social media. My next upcoming fight is late March. We're looking at March 27th, 28th. I can't remember which one of those are. Saturday. Excuse my memory, but yeah, late March, man. That's what we're looking at. And on my social media, you'll be able to find all the information when tickets go on sale. When my merch goes on sale, when things drop from my clothing line. So Vaughn_WCG. That's where you want to find me at. That's where you want to follow me at. Holla at your boy, DM me, whatever. We can chop it up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And for people who don't know, it's Lavonte, world class gentleman. Thank you very
Yes,
much, sir.
sir.
Appreciate you, brother. You have an incredible day.
All right, man. You too. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're listening to 105 One Live.